Here we have our 2022 Toyota Camry SE all-wheel drive, and I want to talk about the last almost 3 years that we've owned this vehicle. Some of the good, the bad, and of course the fact that we are actually considering selling it. That's right, I want to talk about some of these features, and also I want to break it down why in fact this was the vehicle we bought and what's actually motivating us to possibly sell the vehicle. So let's just skip right along and I'm going to take you for a ride. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
So some of the good things, I want to break right into it, are the way the vehicle looks. We've always thought the Camry was a relatively ho-hum looking vehicle, but then this generation of Camry came out and we were very much impressed because they did great things. They have great little wings on there, of course little details like that, sleek looking taillights. We really love the looks of it. It definitely ramped up the sportiness look. Of course it has some great lines along here and very sharp looking bottoms on the rocker panels. The front end of the vehicle was also very appealing, and we just thought when you compare it to some of their competition, although the Accord was great, it was already going hybrid with very small engines, so that was a no-go. Mazda had some vehicles in the loop, but we didn't want to go with something so small, and we weren't really in love with the looks of the hatchback Mazda 3. Although they're amazing cars and the reliability is top shelf, the Mazdas just didn't show the value that this car has. And so that's the first thing what we considered was one of the positive benefits of this Camry. Another thing that we thought was really wonderful with these vehicles is just the sheer space. I mean, looking through this vehicle, lots of room in the back seats here. You've got room for all kinds of people. You can flip this up in the middle. Now you have room for 3, and we just find the space very agreeable. You've got room for a couple of cup holders there, some vents, pocket holders, of course, and overall it's got a lot of room. Of course, naturally, power windows. Everything's pretty basic though. Close that up. But it's the front as well that we really loved. It has a more modern style to it, and when we compared it to the Corolla that was in the same showroom at the same time, the Corolla, for only a few $1,000s less, it felt very basic. It also had the CVT transmission, and that's another thing that we really loved about this car. This does not have a CVT transmission, rather it's a torque converter automatic transmission right there. You have other great features. Of course, you've got dual heated seats. You've got also features like heated steering wheel, which is great when things get cold in the wintertime. We did the upgrade, so we got the upgrade, so we do get the push button, which we loved. Lots of space there. You've also got wireless charging, and of course that center screen, which is great, and that was a nice update as well. You got a bigger screen. Let's pop the hood and explain some of the good things. Okay, so let's take a look under the hood. So this was one of the other components why, in fact, we decided to go with this car. Again, if you went with the Corolla, it had a smaller engine. Of course, this one does feature the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, and it was one of Toyota's tried and true engines. It's been around a long time. They've spun out many variants of this, from hybrids to different naturally aspirated versions of this, but ultimately it's a reliable drivetrain. This 2.5 liter 4-cylinder is very impressive. It's never left us stranded, and it certainly does not use any oil. Easy maintenance. You know, you look at features like this, when you look at a car in the showroom, we often look at things that a lot of people don't look at. We look at the accessibility for maintenance. We look at the quality of parts. You know, are they using a lot of plastics? In this case, not really. Sure, plastic housing there, plastic, but that's just a cover. I mean, a lot of critical parts are metal where it matters. And if you had to change something, parts were very easy to get at. You don't have a tight modular setup. You have an engine that has a lot of simple, high quality parts that are very easy to access. You know, everything is very accessible, and generally the quality of that engine at 2.5 is great. Now it's also got 204 horsepower, and so it has enough pep to giddy up and go. So that's some critical things that we thought were very much beneficial, and some things that we thought were great about this car. So it's very much more stylish than a lot of the competition. We like the looks of it better than, of course, its smaller brother, the Corolla, as well as the Hondas. We didn't particularly love the styling, but that's always sort of through the eye of the beholders. We just particularly like the style of this, and Mazda didn't really have that car directly. The Mazda 3s were a little smaller, and anything in the domestic space just didn't seem to resonate. Now, there is only a few drawbacks I really want to get to, and let's talk about that. So while we found the value immense in this vehicle, the size, the space, the features, all kinds of interior elements, components, electric upgrades, sunroof, I mean, I could go on and on and on about the value proposition that this car provides, and that's a big reason why we bought the Camry in 2022. Now it's got just about 50,000 kilometers or 30,000 miles coming up very, very quickly on this car, but there are some drawbacks. And of course, one thing we had was that infotainment system, and I've talked about that before, but one time that infotainment system stopped working. I mean, all the lights came on and the dash and everything was functioning, but it just didn't put any audio out to the speakers. There was just no audio. Even when we turned the buttons and the knobs, nothing really changed. So clearly there was a bit of a problem. We couldn't get the audio out. We had to take the vehicle into the dealership. I mean, it was under warranty, so they managed to fix that up. I think all they did was disconnect the battery terminal, reconnected it, and then it worked again. So that was a weird bit of a hiccup there. Another drawback of this vehicle, and you're gonna find that with a lot of 4-cylinder vehicles. This one's no different. Mazda is no different. Honda is the same story, and even BMW. I drove the 330s and some of the 4-cylinder. Anytime you get into a 4-cylinder or a 3-cylinder engine, it's going to sound a little bit strained, and this one, it's quiet. When you're just cruising along, it's quiet. The car overall has a very nice sound to it, you know, isolates you well from road noise, and it feels like a big substantial car. The only drawback is when you get on it and you really start pushing the throttle in because you want to go for a passing maneuver, well, it doesn't have a ton of power. The engine transmission shifts down, it starts zooming away, and it moves okay. I mean, with 200 horsepower, it's not lighting your day, but it does get moving along. The only drawback, of course, is it starts to make a lot of noise. It starts howling. You know, 4-cylinder, 3-cylinder engines, once you really start leaning into them, they start buzzing and humming. And it's even worse when you get in cars that have CVT transmissions. You get very much that resonant humming and vibration and buzzing, because that's a common trait when you get into CVTs. And that's where cars like the Corolla, even in the Honda space, are using a lot of CVTs these days, and it just doesn't inspire confidence in the sense of reliability, but it also doesn't make it sound all that wonderful. Whereas this has a torque converter, so when you're not on it, it's quiet, but it does get noisy and buzzy, and the engine is a little bit noisy. That's a drawback. That's something that we just didn't particularly love. Another drawback is, I mean, while we do appreciate the styling, and I truly believe in its class it's better than many, there's still this feeling of lots of plastic. And even when you look at this, you'll have this black plastic here, but then you look at this section here, and you can tell it's a different grade. It's a high gloss, kind of a hard plastic, and it almost has a green tinge to it. And I've seen plastics like that before where they start to leach, and you use cleaning products and then it leaves like a yellow film on your rag. So this style and grade of plastic is not that wonderful. Pretty common for this space and this price point. You're going to anticipate that. You know, they're using this non-leather, and that's common for Toyota and pretty much all of its competition. But I would say if you're looking at interior quality, you're probably going to find a little bit nicer styling in the Honda Accords if you're talking about in the same classification. But the layout is nice. It's just that it uses a lots of plastic, and the plastic does not necessarily inspire all that much. Another thing that I'm not really particularly loving, and it's not unique necessarily for this car, I think you'll find it in a lot of cars, is the service intervals. The service intervals on this car, in my opinion, are stretched out a little too far. You know, a lot of vehicles these days, they're really extending the oil service changes and all of that. And I truly believe a lot of that comes down to the fact that these vehicles, of course, are often sold with maintenance packages. You know, you go in here and you'll find in your maintenance manual, it'll give you, you know, how many miles per oil service you should be doing. But in my own personal opinion, that's not soon enough. We're seeing a lot of these vehicles nowadays. We've seen it with BMW, we've seen it Toyota, and we've seen a lot of brands where they start extending, elongating these service intervals. And I don't agree with that. Even though it's synthetic oil and they're using quality oils and filters and there's all of the bragging rights, the bottom line is when you buy a maintenance package and you're signing the paperwork for these vehicles, as we did, salesman then pushes you off to the finance office, and that's where they try pitching you on some of the extras, paint protection film, undercoating. They try to sell you on extended warranty and even maintenance packages. And a lot of that maintenance package, remember, if they don't do any oil services for you in that 2 or 3 year window, that's money saved for the dealer, right? Well, they can't do that. So instead, they really stretch it out from what is actually reasonably good practice. And oil service is honestly 3, 4, maybe 5,000 miles tops. if you're talking about synthetic. But the problem is it feels like we put on decent miles on this car every single year. The maintenance tender that shows up when we turn on the dash unfortunately doesn't necessarily give us reminders soon enough. It feels like it's in that 12 to 15,000 kilometer range for an oil service, which in my opinion is stretching it far too thin. All right, so let's go for a quick drive, and I want to explain one more drawback that we personally experience. You can bicker and balker all you want. At the end of the day, what I feel truly is that you can up the number of service intervals you do. Even though the computer tells you you only do it, at this point and this point and this point, I truly believe you should be cutting it in half and doing literally half as much mileage between oil services. And I truly do believe that. So it's not a complicated thing. It's not specific to the car. It's really more administrative, and it's really another bookkeeping exercise, and one of those elements that, in my opinion, my personal opinion, that manufacturers are trying to save costs. When they sell you on a maintenance program, they're trying not to hold themselves to full account, ultimately get you in and out the door far less frequently, if I will. So overall, a very positive experience in the last 2.5, now almost 3 years with this car. Overall, it's wonderful. We truly believe we made the right choice. The Camry is probably the best car still today, bang for buck, bar none. The problem is now they've switched out. You can no longer get this 2.5. You can't even get that 3.5, which was even their sweet spot. Now it's a hybrid only. So let's take this for a ride, and I want to explain, because I actually got a video that I featured there shortly ago. And it's really talking about a recent experience we had in the service department. So this is kind of one of the bads. And I don't think, in my own personal opinion, my experience has been that the individual franchise dealers operate in their own business model and their own structure. I don't know necessarily if it aligns entirely with Toyota as a corporate. I can't say that definitively, but that's been my own personal opinion. From my experience, my opinion, that's how I feel. The reason I say all of that, and the reason I'm making it complicated and getting into it, is the fact that we had a recent experience where we took the vehicle in for a maintenance session. It was one of the annual maintenance program, oil, filters, inspections, and all of that. They usually do a tire rotation, brake wear check, and all those usual checks. They even check your floor mats, but ultimately they didn't do as they were expected to. They didn't show up with the paperwork, and it was a true letdown. But I'm going to share that link at the end of the video where I really get into the nitty gritty of that, because I truly do believe that was a letdown. Up to that point, we had a great experience, and maybe it's just the wool over our eyes. Maybe we just didn't know enough and we didn't ask all the right questions, but in our own personal experience, it wasn't great, and it really made us question, and the trust factor isn't really where, in my opinion, isn't where it should be. So again, overall, the car, for what it is, we love it. It's great. Now, to answer the question, or to talk specifically about why we've thought about selling it, well, there's a couple of things. It's not for the car. We love the car. It's been great. It's been quiet. It's been ruthless. We drove it to California and back, did a big road trip up to Sierra Nevadas, driving through the hills and the mountains, extreme colds in the winter here in Canada, extreme heats in the deserts, and it did flawlessly. It doesn't use oil. It's quiet. It's peaceful, serene, has all the features. What's not to love about a Camry? Ultimately, what I'll say is, when we were in the dealership last time, the dealers were pretty pushy, and so here's where we've considered selling it. The only reason we're talking about that is not to trade it in for another Camry, because the new one's a hybrid, and all I'm going to say is they offered us a dollar amount. We said we didn't want our vehicle to be assessed. They offered up a free estimate as to a trade-in value of this car, which we didn't even ask for. They offered it, but we declined, and then they ended up doing it anyway. So they threw a number at us. They had a service manager go through our car, pulled the numbers, the VIN, and validated everything, and said, hey, you know what, great news, we did a number on your car, here's what your trade-in value is. Well, guess what, the car is what, 2.5, 3 years old? And they gave us a trade-in value that was, I think it was in the mid-20s, when we paid just about 40 Canadian for the car. That's about 40% loss of the vehicle, which makes no sense for this kind of car. We're seeing clapped out, worn out 6 or 7 year old Camrys going for more money than what these people were offering us. So it was a bit insulting, if we're being honest. And so ultimately, that really didn't leave us with a good taste in our mouth. And then we started looking and started really doing the numbers. Okay, $25K you get for this car. The new one's something like $45,000 with the new hybrid. So that 45, it actually more like 50 because you got to put PPF on it, mats and all of that. Now you're close to 50,000 from the 25. That leaves us having to come up with another 25,000, which is effectively the same car as this. So we came down to the, crunch the numbers, and it, for a car we've only got 30,000, less than 30,000 miles on this car. It just made 0 sense to trade this vehicle in for a new Camry. However, when we were in the showroom, we were looking around. One car that caught our eye was the Supra. Now, there's a GR Supra in the showroom, had a 6-speed manual gearbox. We know it's got BMW's glorious B58 engine, has a whole whack of power and performance. We love the styling of it, and it really made us think, what if we bought one of those cars? So it got us thinking, and we went home, we started pulling the numbers and the stats online and doing more research on that new Supra. And we really liked what we saw. I've driven them in the past, but never really gave them too much of a look. It's really got us thinking now. The Supra could in fact be a good replacement. Now, I get it. It's not the same vehicle. It's a rear-wheel drive, high-performance horse, 400, close to 400 horsepower. Here we've got a sedan. It's a family car, all-wheel drive. It's great for winter, summer, all around. The Supra is really more, focused. It's summer only, really. You could drive them in the winter. You need winter wheels and skins. It's still rear-wheel drive. It's not the greatest vehicle. So the common sense in our mind is, do we maybe trade it in for a Supra, or do we just buy a Supra flat out and hold on to the Camry, keep it in the family? One thing is, I can't think of another car right now in this space that could replace the Camry in the same price point. Again, I've looked at the Mazdas. They've got some cute SUVs. I love the Mazdas. I think the CX-50, the CX-5 are fun little SUVs. The Mazda 3 is fun because you can get with a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed auto. You can get a turbo, non-turbo. Some great features. They're sporty. They're fun to drive. You're giving up space and some practicality there too. And again, as I've said, there's really nothing import, domestic, otherwise that could replace this car appropriately. So I don't know if I would trade it in for any other brand at this time in this space. I mean, you want to ramp up, go luxury, 100% Lexus, wham, IS 350, boom, ES 350, great cars. Those would be cars that I could look at. But you're really stepping up to a significant price point. So if I was looking at ramping up and spending a little bit more money, I would certainly probably go the Lexus route. I like some of the products. I like that you can still get some of the outgoing V6, that 3.5 liter V6. I truly believe that's one of the best, most underrated luxury cars on the planet today. The ES gives you front wheel drive. The IS gives you rear wheel drive. You can get all wheel drive in both as upgrade, and they're both awesome cars. If we're being honest, I have considered maybe looking at stepping into something like a Lexus, but for the time being, Toyota tried to pitch us on a sales and a trade-in, and quite honestly, not sure I'm ready to do that. So, overall, we feel like the build quality is pretty solid. The doors are solid. Overall, it's a great car. I have no rush to get rid of it anytime soon. And quite honestly, I totally recommend the Camry in any shape or model or engine configuration. So ultimately, I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's the good, the bad, and why we've even possibly considered selling it. And as I promised, right there, I'm going to share the link with our recent service experience and why in fact that really turned us off. And down there as well, there's also a link to some of the best cars that you can buy in 2024. Hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.